What's good, people? It's your boy Chad from the Realest podcast server with a major announcement. 2025 tax season is officially here, and we're partnering with Philly's #1 tax accountants to get you the maximum refund for the least expensive price. All tax season, TP Taxes is doing $75 simple returns, and you don't even have to come to the office to get it done. 1099s, LLCs, corporations, we got y'all covered as well. Contact us today at 215-TP-TAXES or visit us online at tptaxes.com to lock in your free consultation from the best accountants in the country. Mention TRPE to unlock additional discounts and financial services.
Y'all's the hate on all of my moves, but now niggas on it. Y'all used to bait me on me and my views, but now niggas on it. I used to tell them I'ma have me a show, but now niggas on it. Her homies on it. Your homies on it. Y'all's the hate on all of my moves, but now niggas on it. Y'all used to debate me on me and my views, but now niggas on it. I used to tell them I'ma have me a show, but now niggas on it. Her homies on it. Your homies on it. Realest podcast.
TRP Nation, what's good? We're on location today here in the heart of Southwest Philadelphia. I could throw a rock at Matt's old house from where we at now. And we are with an absolute legend of civic duty and public service. Today's guest is a pillar of modern politics and a beacon of light to those who aspire to one day occupy the same space. His close to 40-year run in politics has garnered him a stellar resume filled with leadership initiatives and major wins for the citizens of Philadelphia and Pennsylvania at large. He was recently named one of Philadelphia Magazine's most influential people as the godfather of politics. We got to talk about that. Let us all welcome the author of the Probation Reform Bill and chair of the Stop and Go Legislative Task Force, Senator Anthony Hardy Williams.
Please tell my wife and my children
That he did all
how
that.
great I am.
First things first, thank you for joining us and hosting us at your office. Like I said, me and Matt grew up not too far from here, 66 in Lindbergh for me. I lived there from like 97 to 2005, and we pretty much lived in the Penrose.
I was born in Penrose, 84, and we sold the house in 08. So
Yeah, 24
years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Penrose is totally different. And driving through here is totally, it's like mind-blowing at times seeing it.
Where we are right now, is this still considered Southwest? Is it Eastwick? Like, what's the designation? Because it changes all the time.
Yeah.
So, like anything, it depends on who you are.
Right.
And generation which you're born, right?
Yeah.
My kids called Germantown Uptown. We didn't call it that.
Right now. It was
Mount Airy.
Uptown was considered, because I went to Central, so I've been going through this my whole life. Like, what's Uptown and what's not? Because Germantown people to tell you, I'm not from Uptown, I'm from Germantown. That's what Mount Airy and West Oak Lane and all this other stuff.
So those are the type of distinctions. So for me, it was Eastwood. It wasn't even broken up into the neighborhoods that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And with all due respect, it was basically Eastwick because we weren't allowed to come down here, not legally, but socially, you just didn't even hang down here unless you were driving through to go to the airport. And when you told me you were literally from Houston, I was like, whoa. And you know why? Because those dynamics, yours is a little bit different. Still none the same, a little bit challenging.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why my office is here is the community has evolved, but also because representation across a wide band of people is important.
Yeah.
And, I knew I could make, with all due respect, kind of statement by being in Eastwood in terms of how we're moving forward.
Yeah. Growing up, you would always hear those arguments. Like you said, like Eastwood, Penrose, Tennicum, Cobblestone. It's just like, man, I'm going home. Y'all sit here arguing about this. And you figure my dad, he bought the house in 70, and they hadn't even built Pepper yet. Pepper was built in 74. So he's got pictures where if you go past 80th Street, it was all marsh. Like, it was all like swamp.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, and them pictures are crazy when you look because they built up, it goes all the way out to 88th Street now. Like back where the fire station and all that is.
In Tennicum, we didn't even drive through Tennicum. Right. I mean, Eastwick was challenging enough. Buse was challenging enough. And I want to make sure everybody understands racism existed, it still exists, but it was openly racist, right? Tennicum was on a different level. Steroids in terms of how people were indifferent in tower.
We caught the tail end of it. My generation, we were coming outside in 92, 93, 94. That was about 10 years old. But I remember when we were young boys, we used to go to Elmwood Park, Sabati, and we play basketball. And the white guys would show up with their trucks, their hockey gear, and they'd tell it, yo, y'all got 30 minutes.
Clear this out.
Clear this out. We about to play hockey and drink beer. And that was like a real thing. All the way up Elmwood Avenue. It was a lot of white folks there. Right. Yeah, it was way different than what it looked like now.
Aggressive white folks.
Yeah, and as it went further to where you was on 66, getting up there, like I was telling him, my uncle and them, they used to get chased home from Main Building.
Yeah, that's right.
And to us, it makes zero sense.
I chuckle about that. When I talk to your generation about that, they couldn't imagine Bartram being anything other than dominated by African Americans.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a lot of, I mean, to be fair to the school, it has its challenges, but it has a lot of rich tradition and history to it. It's whites and blacks take pride in, right? Because we had, not only did we only have legendary ball players from there, we had legendary folks who were in business, intellectually gifted. They all came out of Bartram at a certain period of time.
Yeah, Bartram's like a rich history.
Yeah, when I was making my decision to go to high school, I went to Andrew Hamilton Middle School. I was in the Magnum program. When I was making my decision to go to high school, my mom said the only condition you have is you can't go to any school with Bartram in the name. Anywhere else, you can't go.
My mom was on the
you
same
can't go to
thing,
Bartram.
that's funny.
My mom's from South Philly. So she's like, yeah, she went to Auden Reed before they closed it. And she's like, you can't go to no school with Bartram in the name.
So where'd you go?
Central.
My mom taught in that.
Where's the camera? Super smart. Yeah. Like Rick is normal people. He got like, I got to go to Central.
What number are you?
260.
And that's how they go. It's funny because I was telling Chelsea that I remember years ago I was talking to this girl, it was her friend James, like, yo, you real smart. You at the Central? And I was like, yeah. And the one girl happened to go there. She was like, what number is you? I was like, 282. And she was like, damn, you on. I was just making it up. Yeah, but my mom taught in that cluster in Southwest. She taught at Patterson. So she was on the same type of time, like, yeah, like you're not doing the neighborhood school thing. Because I was going to Pepper, and, you know, Pepper that time, it was 1,400 kids at Pepper. So it was, you know, everybody, Larchwood, Pascal Project, like the whole, everybody out here went to Pepper. And my mom was just like, yeah, you're not going to Bartram, because I was going to go to communications.
It's true about that, and we'll get into it. That my life experience, because people say, well, how do you make decisions about policy and laws and things like that? Certainly the people I've lived with and I represent have an impact, but also my life experience. So my mom was a school teacher like your mom, and understanding how people are educated in this country, how systems work in this country, and how the Philadelphia public school system works in the city, informed me about a policymaker, you know, which I knew to be true for generations, right? So it's interesting you said that, because my mom was like your mom. My dad wasn't. My dad was like, go to just doing what he was doing, working and stuff like that. My mom was like, no, you're not going to this school. You got to go to this school, and then we got to make sure. And my mother, you know, really protected me. My brothers and sisters were academic stars. They were students. They really worked hard in school, and there was me, like, almost adopted. Like, okay. And if there was a word potential, could have been written like multiple times, every report card. Yeah. We had report cards. If he would just exercise his potential, he'd be, you know, so that was me.
So were you just like, I guess, disenchanted with like the school process? Was it just not up to snuff for you to where you just got disinterested?
No, I think in my case, to be candid with you, they didn't test. You know, over a certain generation. So I think, frankly, I'm all those alphabets. You know, I was A, H, T, D, and I know I'm dyslexic because of how people describe the symptoms. So I miss words, I miss letters. So it takes me longer to comprehend. And the longer it takes you to read, the more bored you get with it. And the consequence of getting more bored, the less you read. Right. And so now I read a lot because I know how to do it.
Exactly.
Before, I didn't know how to do it. So
you just shunned it just
So in those formative years, you know, when people were saying I had potential, really meant I was smart enough to, you know, be advanced, but nobody was helping me with what my dyslexia limitations caused me to do. And they didn't catch up to that until I was in high school. So, and it actually made a big difference, you know. So those things weren't because I wasn't interested. It was just like I just wasn't comprehended.
Gotcha. I want to start with your Philly story, because everybody's Philly story is different. I know you're a West Philly guy. What was
Southwest?
Oh, Southwest Philly. Okay, so somebody messed up on your bio because they told me West Philly.
Yeah, they did.
What was life like for you growing up in Southwest Philly?
That's a great question. I want to say it because I love sitting in front of, I never thought I'd be this age talking like my dad, right? But I love it because at least you are interested about your history, right? To build upon a future, right? So anyway, to your point, I grew up on the house I live in now is I bought that house back.
Oh wow!
I live in the house I grew up as a child on Cobb Street Parkway, which at that time was similar to when we talk about abuse. There was whites were migrating out and blacks were migrating in, all from the South. So, you come from the South, get to South Philadelphia. Come from the South Philadelphia, get to Southwest Philadelphia. Southwest Philadelphia, get to Woodward. Woodward, then
that sure was the trajectory.
And then you get to Showham. Whoa. So we never got that far. But anyway.
Got stuck on the first
So, mine was really, which I didn't know, was pretty complicated. Because my dad was a lawyer, my mom was a school teacher. My father served in a public office, so we had to live in a certain part of Philadelphia district, which was, I tell people all the time, it was the best. I had every type of person who lived in my community. It was significantly African-American. I told people I lived in a neighborhood where I had a priest and a pimp. I had a number runner and a lawyer.
Righteous and ratchet.
I had a truck driver. No, actually, the ratchet dude was the cat who's was not the guys who were, ran the numbers. Yeah, they paid for Little League. They paid for all the little stuff that we did. The things that we see, non-socialization that causes crime and murder, none of that happened. So the people who ran those kinds of things kept everybody in order. I had gangs in my neighborhood. I didn't get attacked by a gang until I got on the bus, and then it would be on.
Yeah.
So in my neighborhood, I could come home, street lights are on, you got to get in the house. Those are certain rules. You could not cuss in front of certain older people. You had fights with your hands. You went to school and you really tried to learn because they were pushing you to get farther than they did, right? Man, literally across the street, tavern owner, number runner, held it down. He was like splendid in his clothes. Like he was hooked up and everything, had his family doors, was manicured lawns and stuff like that. I had like, when people say, how are you able to communicate with so many different types of people? Because I had so many different types of people when I grew up. Right. So I wouldn't say I'm multilingual, but I'm multi-dialect. Right. So if you put me in the streets with young boys, knock yourself out. I'm not going to use the exact words you use, but I want to be able to communicate because I know what you're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. And then you can put me with the governor or the president of the United States because that was the environment in which I was housed.
Absolutely.
Right? And all of it was a boot up your butt. No apology for pushing you forward. No apology for like disciplining you. No apology for telling you here's the standard.
Yeah.
And all about love. Now, it was different types of love, right? But it was all about love, in terms of its directness.
Yeah. Our former mayor, Michael Nutter, is a friend to the show and a friend of ours. Did you know Mix Master Mike when you were growing up?
So Michael actually lived about like 6 blocks from me.
Oh, wow.
I didn't really know him like that because he went to Catholic school, and he was like Mr.
Prim and proper?
Yeah. So, it was kind of funny. So when he became Mix Master Mike, he was at a club that I used to go to, but I might have run across him a few times, but because we were not necessarily in our spaces of, being politically connected, we didn't necessarily look at each other in that regard. So yeah. I'm sure he was there playing music,
right?
But he was just another DJ for me at that time. So we crossed paths, but it wasn't like anything significant.
Okay.
So now that y'all was all just in a club in Germantown with the Bynum brothers and everybody else, it's just like hilarious when you think about it.
Right. Well, it's so when I go out to this day, I dance. And people are like, I'm like, what are you doing? You dance. Like, well, am I not supposed to dance? Because that's when we did dance. Like we had discos. Yeah. Back in the day.
Y'all got it
now. Floors lighting up.
So we had discos. You understand? Exactly right.
Shirt collar over the chain collar.
There you go. And bell bottoms. Don't forget those. And platform shoes. All that stuff, right? So
Everybody's 6'4".
and only 6'4". and the other part was we also had parties in the basement. So I'm sure
Basement party.
the parents we mentioned it, so we had blue lights, which is the famous commentary, red lights, no lit up basements. Right? And we had gangs. So
What was the gang scene like?
terrible. It was like it
was like West Side Story?
So it was worse than that. So, I mean, realistically, as much as we talk about homicides in Philadelphia, we were the number one homicide city in America for gangs and death and young people being lost to gangs. So before the Crips and Bloods, it was Philly. And again, people look at me and they say, oh, they think I grew up with a butler and a maid in the suburbs. And I grew up in the same neighborhood. I had to catch the 46 bus to go to a middle magnet school in Kensington, which meant I had to catch the 46. It was at 60th and Washington, go up 60th Street, and that was Cedar Avenue, multiple, like 5 gangs from small streets. Get off. So I came from the Creek community. I wasn't part of the Creek because my father would not let me be part of a gang. And my mom would have broke my butt, right? Then I had to get off the 60th and Market, which was the Moon. Had to get on the L, with Zulu Nation, Timberline, and all bunch of others. Then get off in Kensington, which at that time was not Latino. It was white, Irish, Polish immigrants who chased you. So every single day, this is why I didn't understand what I was going through until I got older. Every single day you have to go through that process and also get an education at the same time with an expectation that you were going to be educated, right? Now, of course, they call it, traumatization, whatever, triggers, all kind of stuff. I'm sure I have some of that left in me, but the reality is that gang period of time influenced our behavior. So where I played basketball, how long I played basketball, right? How long I, hung in a certain neighborhood. If I was trying to chase a girl, all that was affected at a certain point in time by gangs.
Man, it just seems like that with so much, and that's just your individual story. So now it's like, think about the people that are coming from the other direction and got to do the same thing. It's like, how can you really focus on learning and, scholastic achievement when you got all of this societal pressure around you with every little thing you do?
I used to say, when you talk to anybody that's a generation or two above us, and they tell you about like their day-to-day routine, you're like, how did y'all even function?
So what's interesting about that, right? Because it's normal.
Right.
But you got, like for me, it was like people who came out of slavery. Now, I'm not a direct descendant of that, but I was only like my great-grandmother.
So two generations
removed, right? So when you listen to them and their stories, they didn't have running water. They didn't have, and all the things that happened to them in their lives. And I'm like, I'm not built for that, right? I wasn't built for that. And so when you talk to your generation, I wasn't built for this. But the truth is, you all had crack.
Yeah.
So you had families that were being broken up in front of your face. Some of your friends, parents, did hook. So every generation that's black in America had some challenge that became normalized.
Yeah.
We just didn't realize it wasn't normal.
Right.
We just dealt with that. That's what it is. You can't cry about it. You just got to get through.
I used to feel terrible, like almost like less than. Like, we not up to par with the people who... My grandfather, he's from North Carolina, Monroe, North Carolina. He was 100 when he passed away. And my grandfather was like, when they went to school, he said, we used to have to pass by, segregation. He said, we would have to pass 3 white schools before we got to our school, and we had to fight at every school.
Right.
And nobody ever missed a day. If somebody didn't come to school, it was like, did they pass away, or why are they not at school? And I'm listening to him like, you had to deal with 3 racism fights in the morning before
3 race wars before school.
If I miss the train, I'm going back.
Ain't about that.
So it's tell a joke, right? So, and we used to, and the guys from Chases, the white guys from Chases outside would be in our school with us. Yeah. And it would be a normal conversation. It was like almost like a cartoon, like, hey, how you doing?
It's like a Black Mirror episode.
Right.
Where it's like
the school bell went up. Hey, I'll see you outside. Okay, you run. Yeah.
Like, we gotta run it.
I mean, really, right?
You gotta work.
You gotta run.
And the funny part about this, civil rights movement. So in the South, they're going to these churches and Dr. King, and they tell me all these stories. So I went down south one year with my first wife, my ex-wife. And she got lost. I don't know how she got lost. And I literally tell people it's from the highway to the road, to the asphalt, to the gravel, to the dirt, to the mud. Her grandma lived in the mud, right? So we're driving, she's lost, and it's dark. And I'm kind of light complexion. I put my hand out the window. I couldn't see my hand.
Oh, wow.
That's how dark it is, right? And tobacco fields are on both sides. And so I'm sitting there saying, you know what? I'm sorry. It had been up to me during the civil rights movement that to show up in the church, we'd be still saying, yes, sir, boss. I had the courage it would take to go through that process of, I'm going to stand up for my rights and freedom, know full well that Mr. Charlie's behind you saying, yeah, boy, wait for you to get out to church. You know, it was the same thing we had to go through to get to school.
And sometimes they don't even wait for you to get out of the church. We want to set the church on fire.
That's right.
Bring you outside and deal with you.
That's right. That's right. And so it's kind of funny when you're saying that, because I had the same thing about, you know, the foundation upon which ours was built. And unfortunately, crack interrupted all that foundational stuff. Because all that stuff that you built upon and get stronger
Gets destroyed.
has destroyed it.
Whew. What was your college experience like?
That was interesting. I went to a school called Franklin and Marshall.
Okay, heard of Franklin Marshall.
Yeah, an elite, like
My wife,
man.
she graduated from Franklin.
So it's an elite liberal arts school. Small class of black folks. I had benefited tremendously because I went to a boarding school before, was on a scholarship I did not deserve, but it made me, you know, qualify for all these colleges. Gotcha. If I hadn't had it, I would have not been able to go to college. That being said, so I go and, you know, I didn't have to get accustomed to being around the majority white community.
You already used to it.
I was already used to it. I didn't have to get adjusted to being away from my home. I wasn't homesick because I was used to it because I went to boarding school. I wasn't even challenged with the academic rigors because I went to a really good high school. Now, this is a really good college, but many of my friends who came there were 8 black people out of 60. I think there were 60 in my freshman class that entered the school, and only 8 graduated.
Oh, man.
Because they got washed out through either homesick, couldn't grades, couldn't socialize, couldn't connect, all those kinds of things that I'd gone through. So mine was kind of different compared to a lot of my college because I was used to it. So while I didn't necessarily love it, I didn't disdain it. It didn't bother me. It was just sort of like, I'm here. And I made friends I had to this day there.
Yeah.
But it didn't affect me in the ways that I saw it affect other students. Some students loved it and they're like, we're, you know, FNMers for the rest of our lives. And there's those who I hated the place. I'm kind of like, whatever. We got my degree.
What did you major in?
Economics.
Economics.
Yeah.
What do you do with an economics degree?
Good question. You do economic analysis. That's what I went to D.C., worked for a small consulting firm down there, and did economic analysis, looking at, you know, drafting answers to questions of growth and things like that.
Gotcha. What else did you do career-wise before you jumped into politics?
So I worked for the consulting firm that I worked for, PepsiCo, which was obviously a large corporation. And then I had my own little business for a while, and then I got into politics.
So what was the, is there like an incident or something that happens socially that triggers you to say, I want to follow a path in politics and civics?
So there's 2 parts. One, I was raised around it because of my father, my mom, and my family had a tradition of activism and service. Father was involved directly in politics, so that obviously influenced me. But that didn't make me really want to do it. Matter of fact, it made me not want to do it. Yeah. How much you got paid, the stress upon your family, those kind of things were like, I'm okay. I'll go make money. And that was my plan, to go make money. But I come back and I get promoted to Philadelphia. I did really well at PepsiCo, so I got promoted up. And I ended up in their national headquarters. And I got promoted back to Philadelphia, ironically, to run a facility for them. Mm-hmm. And I was a regional executive and on the path to becoming a vice president, and, all that kind of stuff, right? Come back to Philadelphia, two things happened. Move, they dropped the bomb, which was 5 blocks from where I grew up as a kid. I knew the mayor, Wilson Good, who was in our house all the time. So I was really confused by that. I was like, we drop bombs in neighborhoods now? Like, what? So that drew me in a little bit closer to the neighborhood. Because when I came back to Philly, I didn't really rush back into my old neighborhood, my old relationships. I was kind of like, fitting into the whole bushy thing. Like, I got money and I'm cool. Hanging out here.
Yeah, you a regional vice president. This is the 70s, late 70s?
So, yeah, mid-80s.
Mid-80s?
Yeah, mid-80s.
Yeah, you making bank. Probably got a nice Cadillac.
Yeah, well, I couldn't do the colored car because that would be too much of a statement. Plus, they gave us a car, so I didn't need to buy a car.
Oh,
yeah. But I had the house, and I had all the stuff that was set for that, and travel and things like that. And every once in a while, I would call some of my friends, and this was a weird part. Let's go out to do this or do that, and I would have to pay the whole bill. Because I wanted my friends to be around me, but they hadn't made it where I made it, right?
Yeah, VP.
Right. And so I was doing that, and then I never forget this. I'm talking to my then wife, saying I was good at making money, but I really wasn't. I was bored. Something was missing. Now, I didn't know. I was kind of young, so I didn't know what was missing. I was like, yeah. So she said, well, either get another job or quit or do something else. Now, of course, our thousands of dollars a month, that's where we're living right here. So I'm sitting there like, okay, whatever. You're a lot of help. Little kid named Marcus Yates gets murdered in Southwest Philadelphia. He is caught in the crossfire between either 2 drug dealers or 2 guys.
Yeah, I read the story on it, and it's like, it's a lot to it, but it's like, it's been 30 something years, and there's all of these developments in it, and it's like the people that they thought did it maybe didn't do. It's like a lot,
which is a lot because the mom is an extraordinary human being. I've known her forever. I know the surviving sons, etc. But when he got murdered, that was like a mile from where I grew up. And as I told you, my house was like I could walk in there, nobody bothered me, even though we had all the stuff going around. There was rules to all this stuff, right? No 4-year-old child gets shot in the head and get killed.
Right.
So I went back and started to find out what was going on. I volunteered for, coaching football and doing activities and things like that. And I got involved and helped create a group called Neighborhoods United Against Drugs. And we started marching on drug dealers' houses when they were dealing out the houses and driving them out the neighborhood. Needless to say, my father called me up and said, you lost your mind, some other stuff. But I did it.
You crazy?
Man, it was exactly what he said, right? And some other words. But and you're young, so you don't really think about that. Yeah. Now I'm like, I would have never done that. But, it worked. Because you got 100 people behind you and we're all calling you out. And so you're not going to shoot 100 people.
Right.
But I didn't think about it like that. I was just doing it. But anyway, long story short, out of that, people said, why don't you run for this seat that was open for state rep? And my father came and talked to me about it and said, you want to run? I'm like, what would make you think that? He said, well, you're out here doing all this stuff. You should consider it. I'm like, well, how much does it pay? He told me how much it paid. And I was like, wow.
A little bit of nothing back then.
It was like, wow. Thank you for the thoughtfulness. I'm not taking that salary home, right? So I didn't say it to him because he would be upset. Yeah. I was like, I knew what my family's value structure was, so I didn't say it, but I'm like, so I go home, I tell my wife, I'm thinking seriously about this thing. She doesn't say anything really other than what do we have to do, because she didn't ask me how much money I paid. What do we have to do? I said, we have to actually move. And where we have to move? Into my old neighborhood, grew up as a kid. Well, my old neighborhood, even though I thought it was really nice, it was not as nice as where we were living.
Right. Where were you living?
Well, we had lived out in the suburbs, then we bought a place over in Eastwick.
Okay.
One of those homes, like near the airport, so it was a nice home, stuff like that. Because I wanted to be close to my facility, so it was closer. So even Eastwick then was very different than where I live.
Right. You had to be doing something good to be down there.
So she saw where we had to move to, and she's like, where we're gonna move. Like, well, gotta look. So I got through that.
She said, "You moving?" Sarah, hey, you moving?
She did say that. She did say that before actually. Good luck. So that part got his my father paid that equal times. Last time he said he figured out my income was an issue.
Yeah.
He said, Tony, you have business experience, you can create outside income and compensate that with what you want to do. And I will tell you, it was God's providence in him that made me make that decision. It was the best non-decision I ever made because it put me at a table of influence and responsibility that I can't change everything, but there's some things which I can change.
Right.
I changed that neighborhood for about 10 good years because I put resources in it. There's policies and legislation which we can talk about that I actually got to do that I can see the results of.
Yeah.
And frankly, I can stand up with pride and fight the fight, and other people won't, because I don't operate in the traditional political sense. Like, when people say we're going to come after you or you're going to lose your office, this is not my office.
Right.
This is people's office. And they don't want me, they'll get rid of me. But in the meantime, while I'm here to raise hell. Yeah. And that's just the way I look at it.
Yeah.
How important is it to have somebody that's like a mentor to help steer you and like guide you through, politics?
Tremendously important. As a matter of fact, almost impossible to not. If you're going to be effective, it's almost impossible not to have one. And when people say mentor, and I've always mentored some that people know about, you don't tell them what to do. There's a difference between trying to control what people do and mentoring people. Mentoring is supporting, giving information, guardrails. Here's what happened when I did it.
Right.
If you choose to do it, I'm not going to say don't do it, but I'm going to say here's what you're going to have to handle if you choose to do it, and here's what you do to grow in that space. About what is it that you want to do to serve people, and I try to ground everybody in that. Like, we're not here just to be ambitious and move from state rep to president.
Yeah.
We're here while we're state rep to serve people, to do something to help their lives every single day. Now, if that leads to popularity, great. But if it leads to people being somewhat controversial, because you're telling the truth, that's also a part of it.
Right.
And then from that, you may get noticed and it may move forward. Mentors tell you where all the dark rooms are, the hidden things are. That's what mentors are supposed to do.
Yeah. Who's been the most impactful person to you during your political career?
My dad, he passed away, but my father was the most impactful person. He's the person who taught me how to do most of what I do.
Right.
And he didn't, there were times when he disagreed with what things I did.
Yeah.
And called me on the phone, and he had some favorite words.
Probably can't say none of them on television.
The N-word was one. MF was another one. Matter of fact, I thought that was my middle name for a while here. But so he, we didn't always see, we knew the goal, but we didn't always see things and approaches the same way.
Gotcha.
But the best part about him was that he didn't get in the way of me doing things the way I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
He didn't cut me off. And he also taught me how to deal with different types of people. Because, you run into, how do you negotiate with a racist? You can in politics. You can leverage. You have to. And you leverage them the same way you leverage anybody else. And it's the rare time that when you're across the table from somebody that disdains you, but you're equal. Because I got a title, you got a title. I got a committee assignment, you got a committee assignment. You got a bill you want, I got a bill I want. Now what we going to do? And it puts you at a table that you would never have in life under normal circumstances. He showed me how to do that without getting my emotions twisted. So when I'm sitting over there, hey, are we done? Yep.
Senator Williams crashed out.
You brought up the move bonding. And what was the energy like being a Southwest West Philly guy? My mom was from West Philly media. She had a lot of disdain for good behind that whole situation.
I think that people need to understand the first of anything is tough. And the first of anything in Philadelphia as a black person is tough. He's the first black mayor of the city of Philadelphia. I say the first black mayor. He was the mayor of all people, but he was the first black mayor. That put certain pressures upon him that other people just don't understand. And there were people around him who worked effectively to undercut him. Right? And Philadelphia still has that. So what your mom saw, frankly, was the result of a commissioner going rogue. And he didn't necessarily know that the person was going rogue. Now, we can hold into account to an extent that you're still the mayor and you should be, more decisive in that process. But it's a fire, it's move, it's black people in the neighborhood, and you got a commissioner who's doing their own thing. And frankly, for all intents and purposes, was in charge of the process and the catastrophe that occurred. So, and I will confess to you, I have a bias. He's a friend. He's always been a friend, will remain a friend of our family. But it wasn't perfectly handled. He knows that. We all know that. And the consequences tragic to so many households and so many families, including to the folks who got burned alive. But I don't think that the full story is understood in the context in which occurred.
It's an interesting concept, though, because you think about it, just 10 years prior to that, Rizzo was the mayor. So it's like just even that in itself, where, the committee, the thing I remember, we had Mike Nutter on the show, and Mike Nutter said that one thing with his administration was him, the DA, and the police commissioner were lockstep. And that's where you get a lot of chaos when those three people aren't moving at the same accord.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And that was not the case. And by the way, when he became mayor, all that infrastructure, especially in the fire department, was not in line with the mayor. They were not. They were not his people. The police department were not his people. They were not fans of his. They didn't like him. And they were certainly not giving information. So that was a lot of power. It was not that he was not in control of on that day. So the consequence of some of the decisions, or many decisions, were not his. Because, I know that man well enough to know when somebody says, we're going to attach a bomb to a helicopter, he would say, wait.
Like, you want to attach the what to
With the what?
Even before you get to the block, Nah, I don't think that's a good idea.
Let's table the bomb for right now.
Y'all didn't start it, did you? Right, yeah.
Where did you get the bomb from?
Yeah, right, exactly. Right, exactly. So, those things I do know about him well enough to know that was not his plan, even though it became the plan.
Right.
What was the tone of the city as a result of that happening in real time?
Well, initially it was shock.
Yeah.
I was working for PepsiCo at the time. I had just gotten relocated back to Philadelphia. I was in a hotel, and I still was into that bag of I'm not really connected to my own neighborhood and stuff like that. I could physically see the smoke
From the hotel.
Oh,
wow.
And I'm like, I'm looking at the TV and I'm looking out the window. I'm looking at the TV and looking out the window. I'm like, that's my neighbor. It's like anything that's happening that you're shocked about. You're just paralyzed by the moment.
I'm Cops Creek, yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. This is going on in my neighborhood. So personally, right? And then, of course, my old neighbors were because they're all tax-paying people, go to work. Nobody's a radical. No. And Moon was an outlier for the neighborhood it was in, right? And annoyance to most people who live there. So the people who live there are stunned that our blocks are burning down, where we spend our lives, our family pictures, or the park is. I don't understand what this is. So it was paralyzing at first, initially, and then outrage and anger, a lot of it, afterwards. And of course, it became an international incident.
Right. How different is the political landscape of Philadelphia and Southeast Pennsylvania now versus when you started?
Night and day. When we first started politically, you mean black folks or just generals?
Just black folks and generals.
So
let's do both.
Yeah, black folks is night and day. I got to think through the general part. But the black folks in the 60s, that was the civil rights movement. You didn't have a number of black mayors. You didn't have a number of black legislators. '60s was a period of time of transition in politics for Black people and America. Black mayors were coming on board, Black Congress people were coming on board, senators and all that kind of stuff, right? So there was significant growth. All that growth really came out of the civil rights movement. So many of the people that were elected were part of that movement that had occurred. Today, I'm gonna run for office. Why? I think I'd be good at it. Hey, and I can ride that bike as good as you can. Really? Okay, yeah. So, and by the way, yours is only 10-wheel. I got 20-wheel, right? So a lot of that comes from ego. No disrespect to anybody who's running.
Yeah.
Right? But most of the people, I'm fortunate the people that I'm associated with, that I've supported, all of them have to grind. Yeah. You don't come knocking on my door and say, I want to be X.
Right.
And I don't say, okay, cool. What is it you've done?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. What have you done that got you to my door so that I can figure out a path to get you where you want to go?
Exactly. But there's a lot who kind of just show up and say, I learned about politics. I know the demographics. I know the mechanics of how to run an election. I know how to win. And they run. And I think that dilutes the connectivity we have with the community.
Right.
And hence, when I was a kid, if I walked in the streets with my father, and my dad was a state rep, then he was a senator, it was always Hardy. It was no disrespect to his position, but it was like, I know you, I can touch you, I can, so it was always that, right? And I seek the same thing. So when people interact with me and they call me senator, out of respect, I appreciate it, but the truth is I'd rather hear people say Tony or Anthony, whatever, because then I know you would kind of like know me a little bit, right?
Right.
And then you can tell me what the problem is. This generation is more about our positions, our titles, which I think is very frustrating for me as a person who's seen this. Because growing up, economically, our community was like going like this. Our electeds were like this. We have more electeds, and our economy is like that.
Exactly.
And that's not what should happen.
Do you think there was more togetherness?
I would say, what's that thing that Chris Rock said? Black unity. He used to tell a joke about Black unity. That was like, it was a joke because you really don't have that, right? Like that, right? So there was much more goal orientation, much more focus upon where we want to move, much more elevated concentration of excellence around how to move the balls. Now,
For the collective.
Now, their egos were all still involved. We still have peacocks back then.
I need my name on this legislation.
Yeah, I need to be noticed about all that kind of stuff. But there was much more understanding that, you have a Black law firm, you have Black doctors. So we were all feeding off of that culture. Today, I don't see that uniformity. I see that people understand we're in trouble and they talk about it a lot, but I don't see a lot of people sitting at a table saying, you bring your strength, I bring my strength. I get out of the way of you when you do your thing. I don't see that. I see a lot of individual silos being put up to work on these issues, which means that you got to use 10 times the energy on the same problem as opposed to collective. So that's the difference I see.
As I said in the intro, you actually authored the probation reform bill, which became a high-profile piece of legislation due to the fact that it's directly tied to Meek Mill, Governor Shapiro. What motivated that bill, and what changes to the probation system in Pennsylvania have happened as a result of that work that you put in?
I'm glad you said that, and I'm going to give a shout out to my baby brother, Jordan Harris, probation chairman.
We bet Jordan on that.
I'm glad you did. Because he'd be flipping out if you actually confess to that. Because it was his bill that was signed into law. He kind of forgets, but I started first. But he got over the line because he was in charge of appropriations. I couldn't do that. But now you heard. So, two things. One, all of us were thinking about those challenges. So specifically probation, how long it takes, became very public when it was Meek Mill's as opposed to other people who have suffered through it for a long time. But a convergence of issues. It's one thing for those of us who come from those communities of color specifically to talk about it. That policy wouldn't have gone anywhere unless white Republicans showed up. And white Republicans have shown up significantly in this issue of reforming the judicial system. One, cost. They can't keep locking up everybody. They realize like we're going to go bankrupt. And two, Who knew? Their kids got addicted to drugs. Oh my God. We can't have Johnny locked in forever.
Where he has a problem. It's addiction.
Right. So that combination of Republicans who were in the majority in the Senate, Senator Barletta and Senator Baker. Senator Baker's a conservative, and but she understood the issue, and she allowed us to move these bills forward. There was national organizations that showed up in Pennsylvania helping us. Yeah. Helped us get Republican votes. So what happened was we actually got out of the Senate once, got to the House, and then moved. Before Jordan, your bill moved. And then we got out of the House again, and Jordan got his folks signed up, and we got, through a cross-fertilization. The consequence of it is that probation, clean slate, which Jordan did do.
Yes.
And there's one, I'm missing one other.
Well, clean slate, was it 3.0 now?
Yeah. And those who don't know, it's the bill that says you want to get a job, you don't have to say, I did A, B, and C, as long as it falls to a certain category. Mm-hmm. It does. So if you want to go get an apartment, it doesn't affect your credit process, mm-hmm. right? Probation, obviously, it gives you a definitive time about how you serve, as opposed to what was going on. It can go on. You can get sentenced for 4 years and be still on probation for 40. Mm-hmm. Before it. Those conditions have all changed. And hundreds of thousands of people are affected in Pennsylvania, across Pennsylvania, not just one demographic, but across Pennsylvania, who are now can live normal lives. They want to live normal lives, go get a job without consequence and penalty.
Yeah, something from 10, 15 years ago shouldn't be affecting you in the present if you're doing the righteous thing and living your life as a productive member of society.
Exactly. And whether we like it or not, there's going to be more of them than not in our community.
Yeah.
And so with all due respect, I appreciate the fact that you got to serve us. Well, apparently I don't appreciate that because Donald Trump said you can shoot a cop and kill him and get out of jail. So I'm not quite sure what the rules are going to be going forward, right?
I don't think any of us know what the rules are going to be.
But that being said, the reality is this. Now we can say with certainty that, you can get out and start your life if you're committed to doing it without all the hindrance and obligations of probation or, your record found.
Got you. Talk to us about the Stop and Go Legislative Task Force. I know you're the chair of it. Talk to us about why that task force was formed and what is the function of it in regards to government.
Yeah, you mentioned at the beginning how long I've served in office, which I don't know why you did that, but thank you. So I can't claim I'm 37. So that being said, as long as I've been in office, we've had a stop and go problem, and it's only got exacerbated. Like when I first started, it was somebody sold beer and not enough donuts. Now you're selling shots and a candy bar in front of a 5-year-old kid, and you're standing outside smoking weed. It's just out of control.
Right.
So, and all of us have been frustrated with this issue. And by the way, it is unique to Philadelphia. If you go outside any place other than Philadelphia, you don't have stop and goes.
Yeah.
You have delis, right? You don't have stop and goes. So you can get a beer and a sandwich, but you don't have, open cigarette singles being sold and wrapping paper and the bongs and all that. None of that.
The shots thing blew my mind.
It was crazy.
I went in a store, I won't say which one, but I walked in, I was at work, I was like, let me go get something real quick. And the girl came in and was like, give me a shot of hen. And I looked over to see. They had a bar essentially set up, and he put a Dixie cup of Henny in the little thing and spun it around.
8 hours.
Right.
I did something.
So just so people listening will understand this, these stores have liquor licenses attached to them called e-license. So they're allowed to have a restaurant, and they break all sorts of rules about that.
Yep.
You've been frustrated forever. So bottom line is that, they're bringing across another bill to change the liquor code. And I said, look, I'm not going to vote for it. And I'm telling everybody from Philadelphia, you can't vote for it.
Yeah.
And here's why. So I organized the members of the Senate to say no. And of course, other Democrats who didn't know what we were talking about started to get on board. That became a thing. And so they came to me and said, please, we got to get this done because, we got to get this, whatever. Here's what I need. I need to change the rules as it relates to stop and go. Who wants to stop and go? All right. So the compromise was to create this thing called a stop and go task force, have members from across the state be a part of it, study it, and then talk about what we can do to change the rules of how they operate. So we did that and got the report out. And now we have a bill that's ready to be introduced and moved in the Senate.
Nice.
I'm sure when it gets to the House, it'll move because you have the majority Democrats, and Joanna and Jordan are members of the leadership team. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, it will change the manner in which these places operate, how they operate, and the controls under which we won't see some of the craziness that you see.
Yeah. You just said, you mentioned that we got to get rid of these stop and goes. Somebody said, what's a stop and go? Is that an issue you face throughout your career where you go out into these different areas of the state and these people just don't understand the issues that affect Philadelphia, Southwest, Cow Creek? Like,
a lot of these issues are uniquely
very, very unique.
Well, let me tell you something. It was not, when I got in, you mentioned earlier about how your neighborhood was kind of segregated, which is not today. So Philadelphia's always in. So there are parts of Philadelphia that never experienced our part of Philadelphia, right, still to this day.
Okay.
So even within Philadelphia, we had legislators who came to visit my section in Philadelphia who didn't understand what we were dealing with, right? And I'll never forget, one guy actually says to me after we have the hearing, he says, man, I can't believe this. They're like, what? He said, I just can't believe that these folks, your folks, want the same thing as my folks.
Mm.
And he was white.
Yeah.
What is that? A house, a job, safe, clean streets, same stuff. Yeah. So multiply that by 10 when you go outside Philadelphia. For instance, guns. So I am not the person who says solving the murder problem in Philadelphia is simply getting rid of all guns. It's more than that because, somebody's going to find a chair. Violence is an issue. Mental health is an issue, right? But that being said, certain types of guns just shouldn't be available.
Absolutely.
Right? So my position is if you want to, buy a gun legally, do all things accordingly, that's your right. I don't think you should be able to buy an assault weapon. Mm. I don't think you should be able to buy all the accessories that make your handgun an automatic weapon that goes boom, 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 right? So there's some things which we think should be limitations. Well, when you go to the parts of Pennsylvania, are you trying to take away my guns?
Yeah, you're infringing on my
right.
my Second Amendment
rights. So what you discover, because at first it really is a verbal fist fight at first. Like, you don't give a crap about me, I'll give a crap about you. You racist SOB, you racist SOB. Then you realize, like, they grew up at 7 years old hunting turkeys on Thanksgiving. It was a family fun day today.
Yeah.
So they don't see the harm in this, right? So the folks who get in the middle saying, I'm going to get your guns. So they're all hysteria. And we're all like, why don't you get it? People are down in my neighborhood, and we're not connected.
All right.
I will say over the years, that slowly is becoming less and less separate. And so you can approach issues differently and still get success. So literally this morning as I was talking to one of my more conservative members, why can't we get a bill moved that says assault weapons aren't what you should have? They're open to talking about that.
Gotcha.
Right? So it's these things that are seen differently really requires human interaction and sharing and comparing, perspectives from one another's vantage points, which ain't that hard if you're a human being. It's just all the stereotypes that come along with it, that are somewhat challenging. I walk in the room and it's announced who I am, right? So what does that mean? I'm not fit. You from Philly? Yep, I am. You black? Yep, I am. You a Democrat? Absolutely. Yep, I am. And I'm an Eagles fan too. What about you? Let's get down to that, right? So once we get through all, and I have a grandson, you got a grandson. You got a wife who tells you what to do. So does mine, right? Well, our daughters take all our money who are full adult people. Like, why do they keep asking for money? I mean, all these things are common nature, right? The more you get into that space, the more it's comfortable for us to talk about how we get it done. Because you got to tell me, I got to go back to my district and sell it. So I get that. And I got to go back to mine and sell it as well. So that people can be more accepting of it, right? So the reality is, the more we do that natural interaction, the more beneficial it would be for us to really act, conduct ourselves and conduct our professional business in a different way.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like just look at us three, like how we talk. We're all from Southwest, but all of us traveled for school. And I think that opens your eyes up to going to different places. Because I got one of my friends, he's from North Philly, 11 North. He don't leave 11, and literally he had to come down here one day. It was just like, the airport?
Right.
I'm like, he's like, I never go out the airport. I'm just like.
A lot of Philadelphians are landlocked to like
What's the word you always use? Parochial. It's very parochial in the city.
Very. Yeah. Extremely. Right. But that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Especially for black folks.
Yeah.
And it's kind of confusing to me because I'm old enough to remember when we didn't have the internet. We had encyclopedias.
Had to go to that library.
Yeah, that's how old I am. Encyclopedias. Britannica, encyclopedia.
Yeah, I needed some.
So the reality is, you have more people moving behind the limitations then than you have now.
Yeah.
In technology. They can see Egypt and Dubai and all. Like, don't you want to go there? Yeah, but I got to go all the way to the airport to get there. Yeah. What? Like, so I don't, like, you hear it, I can't even comprehend it. So when I'm talking to a younger person and they're saying, like, they call me Mr. Tony. It officially makes me old. They don't even call me Senator, Mr. Tony, right? So we're going to go downtown. We going to take us downtown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Like, wow. There's a picture of a person in his office, which I won't point to right here, who had never been out of Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And she was our niece and going on a family trip with us, and we're going down south. Drove out, she saw Delaware. She said, wow. And I didn't know what she was talking about. Shit. I said, man, you all right? She said, yeah, I just never been in Delaware before. Now my brain is thinking like, Delaware? I can walk to Delaware, right? But she had never been to Delaware, which means that some of what you just said, the information sharing, the ability to communicate is getting more limited as opposed to less limited.
Yeah, Philadelphians are so parochial at times that I remember a few years ago they updated the census data or whatever, and they were talking about the demographics of the city, and people was like, "What you mean Philly only 38% black? It's at least 88." And I'm just like, where? Like, have you left your neighborhood this decade?
Man, there's one white person in my block. We gotta be in the 90%.
Like, that really happened. And I was just so mind blown. And I'm just like, this is one of the most diverse cities in America.
Yeah, I drove for SEPTA for almost 15 years. And when you the bus. So it was that's how I blew up on social media talking about all that nonsense. But when you drive the bus through the city, you realize just how segregated and parochial the city. Like, perfect example, the 60 goes up and down Allegheny. From 35th to Germantown, it's black. You cross Germantown, Tino, all the way down to Kensington. When you cross Kensington and get to Jasper, that's Port Richmond. It becomes all Polish, and the whole city is like that. The 48, you drive the 48, you come through Aspen Street, like the Parkway, it's all white. To the point where we used to drive when you come up 29th Street. You get to 29th and Girard. If somebody white was still sitting on the bus, you'd be like, yo, you like, you about to cross Girard. Like, that's how the city gets at times. And you don't realize these people, like, we had Kevin Harden on the show, former ADA, he works in catastrophic injury. Kevin Harden said you'd have guys, when he was in the DA's office, where they would commit a crime and they'd hide out on the next block.
Yeah.
Ain't no good getting on the bus to go down to something.
Right.
I did that on 13. I'm next 100 going to 15. So never catch me.
But so that story I told you about the gangs. Yeah. Right? And let me tell you how parochial it is. It's not only on ethnicity, it's on how you think it's black people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's an interesting conclusion. But I can hide mine because of my age.
Right.
Don't worry about it. I'm just old. I'm like, well, you don't get out of here. Like, what? You lost your damn mind. I mean, and they. So I'm in this conversation with a certain parent. Child's super duper smart, not being challenged, going to fall off. Well, have you thought about sending your child to a magnet school or a charter school or even private school? I don't know if they can afford private school, but they can certainly afford a charter school or a magnet school. Again, Mr. Tony. It's weird. They come to see me as a senator, but they call me Mr. Tony. But that's neither here nor there. So, Mr. Tony, well, where's he got to go? X. No, I can't go that far. What do you mean you can't go that far? That's too far away from home. Mrs. X, look, your child is this level of child. You're not going to get that kind of educational.
You're hindering him by keeping him here.
I had to take her to the place, take her to the school, had to meet her to teachers and, that he wasn't going to get in trouble. The kid wasn't a troubled kid, but he was living in a troubled neighborhood.
Yeah.
He was going to get into trouble. But I had to literally take her to the place to explain to her what was going to happen to her child so she could see other kids from other neighborhoods that were getting the benefit of that experience because of that. Because the reality was, without that, she wasn't going to let him go.
Right.
And that wasn't that seemed to be very normal for her to think that way because all her girlfriends were thinking that way with their children. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there thinking, how we're going to make progress with our community if they all are raising their children in that way. Think about this. You're a bus driver, right? So people get on the bus and they think of you in a certain limited way.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how you respond.
It used to kill me. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. So I probably couldn't have been a bus driver because I know I would have got shot.
Remember, I used to always tell you, people get on the bus and they only will mention the weather, sports, and traffic. As if you can't talk about politics or world news or anything but
world news. Just actually know about another place, another state. So, and some of my best conversations have been with people that people don't expect, like a person who's a doorman at a hotel. A lot of people don't realize they're doing this either as their side hustle or because they're getting their tips or because they're working for a rich person. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues by which people do these service jobs that you don't realize they're smarter than you. Mm-hmm. That's why they're doing the job, because they know what's going to happen with it, right? But that being said, the manner in which we approach these conversations or each other is so limited. I couldn't do what you did because just doing this, it hurts my heart sometimes when I'm hearing the conversation that I'm having with this person. I'm like, you're killing yourself and you're killing your kid. I'm not even talking about people these aren't criminals.
No.
These are just normal people.
Just for the way they're functioning. And
trying to figure out how to make it in life. And I'm like, well, you can't do it that way.
Yeah, that's a dead end.
And we were young. That was part of the adventure. I used to love, I went to Seoul. So, same situation, coming from Southwest, 36 downtown to 27 up to Roxborough. And that was part of the adventure day to day. Going to this other neighborhood and meeting new people and riding this bus and being on that train and that. So it just cracks me up when I see people and they're just like, yeah, no, I ain't left South Philly in forever. It's just
you proud of that?
So that was your adventure? That was funny. You heard mine. Mine wasn't an adventure.
Yours was more like an odyssey.
That was an expedition. My mom time to go to school. Oh, man. That was not the program.
They say Grand Theft Auto. Oh, shit.
Yeah. Pretty much. Right? And that's what I'm saying, to this day. When people say the word trigger, I wish I'd learned that word such a long time ago, right? It's so appropriate because I can feel myself, I didn't consider myself a fighter. I had to fight that.
Had to fight.
Right? Because if you don't fight, you're not going to survive, right? I can feel myself today. Sometimes somebody says the wrong thing to me, and I'm on the Senate floor, and some guy said, there was one guy who literally was going to get me. He was talking, I was talking. I'm like, I can't wait till we put down the mics. I want to go back in that caucus room. Y'all better grab me. I'm not joking. Right? And my brain's thinking, and I'm over 50. I'm like a full-grown adult who talks a certain way, dresses a certain way, but my brain was Southwest Philly all day long. So because you had that in you. Anyway, I'm sorry. We got this big off track. I had a flashback moment. I'm sorry.
We've run it out of time, so it's a couple more things I just want to get to. Something that's very present I was reading about, this John Romano incident. It's literally, it took place in Fallcroft back in November. It's one of the most literally racist, racially insensitive, just unhinged incidents I've heard about in this area in a long time. What is going on with that case? Because I know he's got terroristic threats charges and all this stuff. He's got court in February, and you were there for talking about the incident on the news when it initially happened. What can you tell us about this?
Thank God the Spirit exists. I'll tell you, that's a newspaper.
Yeah,
Delco, right? Small black newspaper reported it. Without that, we wouldn't have been anywhere because nobody said anything about it, right? They had arrested the guy, but there was no like outcry about it. So read about this.
Y'all fill me in real quick. What exactly?
So I'm glad you said that. Glad you said that. So in Delaware County, in Fulcroft.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So African American woman was driving down the street that gets blocked off by this company truck that's backing out into the street with whatever its material is. She, along with the rest of the traffic, are getting impatient because he's blocking the street.
They're on Hook Road.
Right.
I feel like I did read this. Okay.
So one car goes around, then she tries to go around, and he gets mad at her for trying to go around and proceeds to call her all sorts of names and racial epithets. And all this stuff, right? That's part of it. Tells her to do A, B, and C. Call the police. Call the police. Calls the police.
Call the police.
Body cams are on. And he proceeds to say, yeah, I said it. What's wrong with calling him a monkey? I'm tired of these jigaboos. Go eat a banana. Jump off. I mean, he says all this, like, what?
On the body cam.
On the body cam, he's saying, what's wrong with talking like this? I can't have freedom of speech. And the cop, to his credit, the white cop says, no, sir, you shouldn't be saying that. But keep talking.
Talk directly into his chest.
Say the N-word a little clearer. So he gets all that and, goes back to the station, tells the captain, chief, what happened. They come out and they charge her, right? So somehow they get it to me. I read it. I'm like, well, is anybody saying anything about this? Because she lives there. Like, this man still lives there. Is anybody unifying? So I organized groups, including myself, to come out and speak about it. And it gets the news. And at least it hits the news to the point of where, one, he had charges of not felony level charges, misdemeanor level. So they're going to move those charges up. There's a videotape, which I wanted the public to see, which I guess he'll see in February, which shows him literally saying these things and how he conducts himself.
And I think at some point he realized he was being recorded, and it was like, oh, no, I didn't say that, but I did say this. Like, I didn't call it the N-word, but I said she was a monkey and she need to eat a banana.
Some to that effect. Is that right? And then
He's tried to recant.
exactly. And the DA, who I'm on about this, who I invited to the press conference, didn't show up, saying this guy writes me a letter. I'm just being candid. The DA writes me a letter saying he can't come because the canons of ethics don't allow him to do this. My father is God rest his soul, was a lawyer, graduated from Penn University Law School. My brother's a lawyer, Yale Law School. My brother-in-law is a judge. I go through the whole list. So I know the canons don't prevent a DA from showing up and saying, this guy shouldn't have said those words. So we hold him to account. He gets mad, has his own press event same day. So what the point to that is that the level of racism that I felt as a younger person in Delaware County doesn't operate in the fashion he used to, but it's still there as a strong current. Mm-hmm. Proof of that is this guy feeling comfortable to say it to a cop because he thought the cop was going to agree with him. And then more importantly, some of our public officials who should have stepped up didn't step up, right? And so the case, we're going to be in front of that case in February, showing up in front of the building to make sure he is charged with a felony and demanding that videotape is released to the public.
Man. Last two questions. Your Eagles are in the Super Bowl. I know you're huge. We're going to get to the bad news. It's the end of the interview. We can get to the bad news.
Y'all can kick us out now.
You can take us out now. Blew out the Washington Commanders. Give us your thoughts on the season and your predictions on the Super Bowl.
Thoughts on the season. Tremendous season. Very frustrating as a Philadelphia because I'm not the traditional Philadelphia fan. I go back to when the Eagles sucked.
Yeah. Retro tight Eagles. Yeah.
No, before y'all was, as they say, before y'all was thought of as a seed in your dad and your mom. Yeah. I go back to when they were really, really bad.
In my quick years.
Even before that, but that being said. So I'm a fan because now I'm enjoying it. And if you're a fan, there's no bandwagon. It's either good or bad. That being said. So they had a fantastic season. I get frustrated because I'm tired of the whining Eagles fans who jump on and off the bandwagon. I don't like that. And the sports talk radio if I could get
It's
a
unhinged.
rubber gun and shoot these people,
It's
I would.
premium entertainment, though. You have to.
I so enjoy when the Eagles lose and I get to turn on that. They
Are the biggest whiners in the
are
world.
completely unhinged.
And they sit there and say dumb stuff. They still say dumb
Earlier
stuff.
this season, remember one of them Jones when Jalen Hurts had one of them bad games, and the guy came on the radio was like, "I just don't understand why we just don't make the play to get Tom Brady." And the guy was like, "Well, Brady's retired." So what does that have to do with it?
And then, so the last day, not the last day, the day before last, he throws for 100 some odd yards. Look what he did. The same week that Patrick Mahomes throws for 114 and Josh Allen throws for 120, he throws for 125. But the difference is we won. Bills lost. No, Bills won that because they were playing the Chiefs that week. Bills won. Chiefs won. We won. Same formula.
The talk was completely different.
Totally different. And more importantly, because I'm the guy who goes back and watches the TV highlights again and again. We have games where he threw the ball before Barkley became the thing, which is actually mid-season. It wasn't the beginning of the season, right? Mid-season, they really converted to what his strength was. He was throwing the ball. He could throw the ball. So, bottom line, to answer your question, all right. So you got go put me on the couch.
It's emotion.
I'm delighted with the season.
Do you think Saquon should have went for the record?
I was just about to ask you that.
I just am so annoyed about that. Yeah, definitely. Because, I mean,
I went off about it.
I don't get, so everybody said, well, you're arresting because you get hurt. Dude can fall off. Jalen got hurt doing something at home. Right? Remember last year? He didn't get hurt playing football. We jacked up his knee or whatever. It wasn't playing football. He was doing something else. Now, I don't know if he hadn't gotten proposed early enough or what. Something happened, right? Yeah. So that can happen. And that was a historical moment for the team, the line, and him. So, no, I think that they should go on with it. And based upon him, he would have been fine.
Yeah, I was completely annoyed with the fact that he didn't go for that.
You get a chance to make history, he's supposed to go for
it. Literally puts a bow on this season because he's having probably the best running back season we've seen for sure since probably TD, 98. So to put that bow on it where you had that reverse hurdle,
right.
And you broke the rushing record, and then the performances you had in the play. Don't get me started.
So in the other part, I'd say, well, you're saving for the Super Bowl. Okay. What if they don't win the Super Bowl?
That's the
They're
reality.
going to win the Super Bowl, so they win the Super Bowl. So I can say that now I was just saying, he said, and I said something different.
Listen, every metric on paper says the Eagles win the Super Bowl. Every one.
Right. But if they didn't, then guess what you just did?
set the all-time rushing record.
Do you go out into the streets when they win?
Now you don't mean like downtown.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I am a black person of a certain era. Okay. I don't go around drunk white people. Or drunk black people for that.
That's some sound advice, right? That's some life advice.
I'm not, no. And then, because you see me, I'd be like, dude, can you get off the pole? Because you like to stand over me. And if you fall down, I'm not going to be grabbing you. So we went there, there'll be a picture of me like, wow. I don't want that bad press.
We went down there last week. We was out there for about 10 minutes. No. And then we dipped in the steak 48. All right, let's go.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this with us today. This has been a phenomenal conversation.
Yeah, I love talking with the historians of Philadelphia, man, who know about this city.
Last question. How do you envision the future of Philadelphia and Pennsylvania? At least this part. Southeast part.
We have, it depends on the leadership and then how we organize the followership. We have technology which is evolving here. We've always had undercover entertainment of a significant level. I mean, Kevin Hart's from here, he comes back here. Will Smith's from here, they come back here. They're producers, they like giants in their industry. And then you got Scott is here. I mean, you got all sorts of stuff that grew here and they're still growing here.
Yeah.
We have research institutes. We got hospitals. We have the bones to be one of the biggest influential cities in America. Forget New York, forget Washington, D.C.
Right. You have the best children's hospital in the country.
Right. And so we have the bones to do this. I frankly think when you use the word parochial, we're still parochial in terms of our politics. We're used to, and I'll be very candid with you, the limitations we put on ourselves as African Americans and, interacting with our non-African American friends. There should be another bank of this African American. There should be a black law firm. It has nothing to do with whether you think white people are okay or not. It shows economic growth.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we're an economic engine in power, there's no other city that I know of in America where the majority of the population is in poverty. There's no reason that we should be the number one group in poverty. We're the number one ethnic group in the city. How does that make the city stronger?
Right.
Yeah.
So it depends upon how we organize ourselves beyond the limitations of our state, right? How we educate our children. With all due respect, we're stuck on this old system of educating our children and not radicalizing it enough so we can open up options so these kids can be in front of it. So it all depends upon decisions we make in the next 5 to 10 years about how we lead. If we do these things, the undercurrent will become the dominant force that will drive us economically. If we are driven economically, we will be a dominant force, not only just the East Coast, but internationally.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, with, Comcast Universal being here, the Sixers, the Eagles performing as well as they are, infrastructure investments that, Comcast and the Sixers are supposed to be coming together to make with Market East, and then now doing this new stadium, arena rather, down South Philly and stuff like that. I think you're absolutely right. Like, if we tweak the right set of factors and attract some more multinational corporations and stuff here and make it, amenable and friendly for them to be here, then we can have
we have to have a
explosive
workforce that's educated. We got to be honest about ourselves. We're graduating children who are not prepared to read.
Yes.
We got to change that. That's a base, fundamental, low-hanging fruit.
Absolutely.
To change that, right? And then, of course, change our orientation about moving outside of our neighborhoods, things like that. Those base factors feed into the things that you mentioned. So why are we importing people from other countries to do the work that folks here could do?
Exactly.
Because we don't have enough people prepared.
Yeah.
If we just do those basic things, then, and I'm going to tell you something. What frustrates me, I'm around these children who are not prepared academically. They don't know they're not prepared academically. They think they're fine. If you just invest in them just a little bit, they're really smart.
Yeah,
They can be 3 grade levels behind and catch up quickly if we make the right investments, right?
Absolutely.
And if we combine that with capital, the entrepreneurial skills that they actually have, and have a corporate community that really interested, there's nothing that's going to stop us. It's just how we conduct ourselves, which annoys me. It frustrates me a little bit.
Man, this has been a wealth of knowledge, greatest.
I can sit here all day. I'm going to cancel that 3 position. Right, yeah, man.
It's so fun. We're really have fun. I really appreciate you all coming.
We appreciate you having us.
And I look forward to talking to you after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I didn't get on the record, by the way, while this thing is spinning. Like, who's the team?
I'm a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, unfortunately, we both are, unfortunately. Yeah. I'm not a proud Cowboys fan. Yes, I'm not happy about it.
Who is it? Not Jefferson's. Well, the one. I'm going home, baby. Yeah, I cannot believe you were at first. Okay.
Yeah, my father. This is my.
We all got it.
Please.
So my father was a Cowboys fan. He was in the Air Force in Irving, Texas, around that time, 80s and all of that. Cowboys, they were winning and all that crap. He got turned over, got hooked, raised me and my brothers to be Cowboys fans, and now I'm dealing with this poison 2 years from birth.
Were y'all in Philly?
Yes. The whole way.
So you definitely know how to fight. Okay, go ahead.
So my dad is a diehard Eagles fan, like Eagles to the death. And growing up, and my dad is Big Walt. Everybody knows him as Big Walt. 6'5", 3 feet. He's a big man, mountain of a man. Okay. And the only thing that could break him down was the Eagles losing. So when I was young, the Sunday afternoon, the Eagles lose, he slammed that door. I'd be giggling about it. And the Cowboys were winning.
You thought it was funny? That's fine, angry black man. He must have done his son.
So the Cowboys were winning. 91, 92, 93, 94, 95. The Cowboys were rolling. And I'm young, and we started wearing starter Apex jackets. And I remember getting like the big star on the jacket or getting the Deion jersey, and it was just like, yo, how about them Cowboys? Yeah. And I got into it. Now, I'm not as crazy as my uncle. My uncle is one of those Cowboys fans that has like how you got all this cool memorabilia. Everything is Cowboys, everything. We went to his house one day, and we were down in the basement doing something, and we just happened to look at the water heater. He's got a Cowboys water heater, and I was like, where you even get it?
So you are both very intelligent, conscientious people.
Enough to not be Cowboys fans.
No, it's not about. I mean, I understand how you're affected by your dads. I love that story, both.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, but Jerry Jones,
I hate him.
He's good.
I can't stand him.
He's fried.
I genuinely can't stand him, and I say the Cowboys are cursed. They're not going to win a
And
championship.
appropriately so cursed.
Gideon is my favorite Cowboy. I wanted him to have nothing to do with that team. I'm like, stay.
Yeah, I don't want him to be the coach of
Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones and all this crap that they got going on. They have a really smart black guy that works in their player personnel and executive suite. They will not let him leave.
No.
He's like trapped. Every team wants him to come be their GM and stuff like that, and they won't let him leave. They just keep paying him more and more money. Like I'm so done with the Cowboys.
I will say this. Because all my friends are Eagles fans, I hang out with them. In the last couple weeks, last couple years, honestly, watching the Eagles. And this Eagles team, I really genuinely like. I really like Saquon. I really like Jalen Hurts. I like A.J. Brown. Like, I genuinely like the players, the personnel, the coaches. I like Sirianni. I like even the offensive coordinator get a lot of flack.
Kellen Moore.
I like all of them. And watching it go, when we went downtown last week after they won the NFC Championship, and I'm like,
I can get that.
Your dad's still alive. Okay. So, did you confess to your father that you're getting a little bit more comfortable being?
It's so funny because when the Eagles won the championship, when they won the Super Bowl, remember Brady threw the Hail Mary, it fell on the ground. I felt compelled to call my dad as the first person, and I called him. 70 years old, dealing with a lot of stuff. He picked the phone up and he's crying. And I'm like, I'll call you back. I'm not doing this right now. He was literally crying. And I was just like, I didn't have, I called just to say, hey, y'all want it? Congratulations. And I mean, he was crying.
The wonderful story, and I love ending on this, is about y'all had dads who were in your lives that affected you in a positive way. And I will tell you, not enough credit. I love my mom, right? But I love my dad.
Fathers are extremely important, man.
Right? Especially for black boys. Right? Like the absence of them leaves them very, very misdirected. And your story with your father being such a big guy doesn't always mean that he can convey connectivity, right? But obviously he did.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of cool.
Oh, yeah, no. He's a Philadelphian through the 21st and Diamond where he was born. He worked at the post office at 30th Street. Like he was the first black on the block. He bought that house in 1970. It's funny, just we were having a conversation, and he bought the house for, I want to say it was $11,500 in 1970. Think about that, $11,000. And he always said one of his regrets was that it was a bigger house across the street. It was like 4 bedrooms, and he didn't buy it. And because we wound up having a family, my sisters, got married or whatever. He was like, yeah, but at the time, I just didn't need all that house. I was single. I was working at the post office. And he's like, and then at that, they wanted 13. I wasn't paying 13. I'm like, yo, 13,000.
They dirty nothing, right? Yeah. So the funny part is, I'm sitting here picturing your pops being the first black dude on the block. Yeah, I'm 6'5". Come on down here and say the wrong thing.
Big Cat Williams.
It's so funny because all my friends growing up used to remember the Beast from Sandlot? Yeah. That's how, because nobody, they wouldn't see him. You would see him in the door or the shadows. My pop's real. He's like, he don't mess with a lot of people. And one of my homies was like, we had the door back in the day that had the 3 squares. And if you knocked on our door, my sisters would look out the first square. Yeah. My mom would look out the center square. And I was taller, so I would look at the top one. My homie was like, yo, I came and knocked on your door. Your dad looked at the window over the door and just down. I was like, man, not here. the world?
I gotta meet you, Pop.
Yeah, my father's my man. That's my man.
And I gotta meet you. I gotta meet both of you. I mean, for you all to do what you're doing and the manner in which you're doing it is not missed by me. The reason why I ended up doing this was because I talked to my communications director.
Yeah.
And there were some stories I wanted to get out before I, paid off to the right for a historical perspective. And also, frankly, to lay the pathwork that requires this next generation to do this work. Like, I didn't know. No, now you know because it was laid out here.
Right.
So I was on a radio show, and then she said, we got to do this.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Shout out QDZ, too. And Chrissy Harris, he was very...
yeah, so he also did that. So, does everybody play golf?
Well, I smoked them at Top Golf. So
yeah, we trying to get it together.
The Cowboys and Top Golf. Like, there's two things. I need to say one more thing. Ain't gonna be banned forever.
Listen. I know John and Ireland from back in the day. So we started running around, and John started playing golf. And I told John I'm gonna come out there one day to actually play golf. And we went to Top Golf, and I was successful. Then I went to Top Golf and was successful again. I went out to the golf course, my homie, and I'm like, you ain't no targets. And he was like, it does. So this is crazy. This is embarrassing. Some chicken fingers.
So we will take you this summer.
I told you all the time I want to come out there one day.
Did you tell you that? So we're done on summer. You're still.
We still.
So the way I started playing golf was, you play golf?
No, I again, Top Golf. That's it.
No, because Q claims he plays golf, but he doesn't.
Q out there networking.
I don't know what he's doing, but he ain't golfing.
I bought a whole golf outfit. I had a visor.
Well, that's what happens when you first start, because golf clothes are cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are comfortable.
You want to hide them look the part. So look the part. No, you can wear golf clothes out now because they're so cool that people don't even know they're golf clothes. It's like, it's fashion. I mean, so 12 years ago, 13 years ago. So I was diagnosed with cancer.
Okay.
And I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So I was supposed to be out of here, right, in like 6 months or a year. And between science and God, right, I got through it. But one of the things that he said was, you don't have a hobby. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't work. Whatever. So going on vacation. And we used to go to Hilton Head every year, and I'd just go to the beach. So this year, John comes in. He says, let's go golf. I'm like, no, whatever. And I'd go into a driving range before I get the ball from or whatever. Let's go golf. So we're going to go golf. So we go golfing, and of course, the lower your score, the better you are, not the higher. So, I'm about 130. Well, that day. He's right up past, like, you run out of numbers and boxes.
It's like 62.
He's right. I said, John, don't write this. Don't write this. No, that's how you get there. Like, John, don't write. So, of course, he writes them there. Anyway, so we go to dinner with his wife and my wife. And he says, my wife says, well, how'd you do? And I said, well, had a good time. And John, you don't know John. John is very sarcastic. Super. So he goes, Sherry says, what's that mean? Oh, nothing. Well, no, well, I just asked how you do. He said, well, your husband, the object of the sport is to have a low score. He more than doubled the card average. He hit about 130. So I'm sitting at the table saying, no, you didn't.
When I then put up whip lovers.
You actually sat there. You actually sat there and signed me out. I said, okay, that's fine. I'll do that, So, those, what do they call it, the simulators? Mm-hmm. So I spent the winter going to the simulator. He's laughing at me the whole winter, and like, you're going to simulator or whatever. Now, the average golfers in America is about $1.02. That's the average number. Okay. Right? So I wanted to get my number down because I used to play sports. So, I'm super competitive. Not realizing that it's not like basketball or football. It is one of the most frustrating things you will ever do.
And it's all skill and technique.
It's all technique. It is all technique, right? So I'm working at it. So by the time we get to summer, I was at 99. Now my number is like 80s, mid-80s to low 90s or whatever, right? enough not to lose your balls all the time. So I get down to that number. So in the summer we gamble a little bit, not a lot, like $5 or whatever. I pay taxes with it. So $5 or whatever, right? And so he doesn't know that cousin Tony. It's $5. 98. Buck break. Write it down. Go to dinner. He had totally forgotten what he had done to me.
Right.
We go to dinner.
And you use it as fuel for this moment.
He's my cousin. It's family envy. So he said, "Where's wife?" I'm saying, "With my wife. We just having dinner on." No problem. Is anybody gonna talk about golf today? Anybody want to talk about golf? Y'all want to talk about golf today? Sure. Ask me how I did with golf today. Anyway, thank you guys.
Thank you so much, man. We absolutely appreciate you jumping there and cool, man.
Definitely.
Really appreciate you.
Yeah, we gotta do this again.
Absolutely. And I definitely want to meet your dads.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Gotta absolutely. That has to
You know
happen.
what I should do is invite them to Harrisburg. So I gotta get dates. Is your dad still working?
Nah, he's retired.
What about you?
Jesus,
Yeah, he's just around.
floating.
Okay. But he can work out a day when we're in session. It's gonna be in the next 2 weeks
Okay.
that we're gonna work it out. Okay?
Yeah.
And we'll come up and have lunch.
Love it.
City Capitol.
Yeah.
I'll get him on the house side so he can meet Joanna and those kind of folks as well.
Yeah, we got treated real good when we went up Harrisburg.
Yeah, for real. Straight up.
All right.
Looking forward to it.